These kids today are so soft, they wouldn't last 10 minutes in a modern warfare lobby.
Why do you think that is?
Well, someone would say something offensive.
And no one says offensive things in Call of Duty lobbies today.
Well, they do, but these sensitive folks will throw a fit and get you banned.
What behavior would get you banned today that would have not got you banned back in 2007?
Just the words we use. I mean, the words they used.
Can you give me any specific examples of words you think we used to hear more of that we should hear more of now and not push back on as hard? They're all slurs, huh? You think kids today are soft because they push back on slurs, huh?
You have pronouns on your profile.
Oh goodness, another sloppy stand-in. Such lazy writing. Intro! Hi, I'm FDRawr. I stream myself losing at games over on Twitch and occasionally make little YouTube videos about ideas that are rattling around in my noggin. This one, if anyone sees it, will probably ruffle some feathers because it's an analysis of a common sentiment expressed in terminally online spaces. How sensitive folks are these days. It gets said all the time, but I couldn't help but notice the folks who champion this view never seem to bring much evidence to the table and tend to react poorly when asked about specifics like, what word would you like to hear more of? Or can you provide a single example of the thing that you're claiming happens all the time? So we're gonna do some digging ourselves, find out when gamers went so soft, maybe see what caused it, and see what we can do about it. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, all that good stuff to help these things grow. And be sure to check me out live on Twitch if you have something to say. In general, believers of the theory that we are growing more sensitive as a society are not shy about their belief, but they are awfully vague. Usually criticisms are pointed towards the millennial and Z generations, respectfully. I was unable to find any solid metric of measuring sensitivity of this nature in human beings. Most of the opinions I've seen on either side of the matter were just kind of vibe-based. So I'm going to look at a few metrics I think could be representative of sensitivity. One metric I found useful was the willingness to engage in potentially violent confrontation. So there's two angles here. One is that most crime, but especially violent crime, has been on the decline in the United States since at least the early 1990s. So in a sense, we could say that modern generations are less likely to engage in violent crimes. And if we wanted to view that as a sign of sensitivity, we certainly could. Coming in from the opposing angles, we could note that the last military draft in the United States was back in 1972, and that since September 11, 2001, the United States has had its military entirely filled by volunteers. So in this sense, we could say modern generations are more willing to stand up for their country and fight in that matter, but much less likely to engage in violent crimes against their own countrymen. Okay, maybe willingness to do violence isn't the metric we're looking for. How about modern identity politics? Everyone is so offended these days. That's a new thing, right? Cancel culture. That's not just the market regulating itself like anybody who took an economics course would know, right? Historically, churches and politicians on both sides of the American aisle have engaged in mass media censorship of opinions and lifestyles that offended them. I find it weird that no one remembers the Christians trying to cancel Harry Potter and Pokemon. Or how, as I discussed in my video on the raid of Pepper Hill, insane amounts of taxpayer money have been wasted on the local, state, and federal level enforcing decency laws, which in general are just anti-gay laws. I mean, back then people were getting canceled simply for being gay or reading Harry Potter. What kind of things gets you canceled nowadays? Oh, we're gonna move on. It's the safe spaces. It has to be the safe spaces, right? That's a completely new concept, or at least something that's wildly ramped up in more recent generations. Well, no, unfortunately, no. When we talk about safe spaces, it's often tied to a modern concept on college campuses wherein victims of a particular kind of assault might meet in a safe space to discuss things that only other survivors of that kind of abuse would understand. In general, But this isn't what people are actually referring to when they say safe space. They're referring to a semi-fictional idea that there's some sort of modern segregation going on in colleges, where members of the current dominant social class are being forcefully excluded from the conversations and discussions via safe spaces. The truth, unfortunately, is the exact opposite, as it usually is in these things. A quick glimpse at any US history book will show that segregation and the removal of people with undesirable identities and opinions is neither new nor more prominent now than it was in the past. I find it really weird that we generalize entire generations as sensitive for reacting to purposefully vile language and behaviors, and in doing so let prior generations off the hook for being too sensitive to even let their children go to school with non-whites. Okay, maybe safe spaces was a bad example, but kids today are just completely unwilling to engage with differing opinions. Let's look at some statistics. The US Census found that we've only grown more diverse racially and ethnically over time, so I mean, younger generations definitely have more exposure to diversity along those lines. Maybe diversity of thought is more the route that should be taken, but I can't find basically any modern examples of McCarthyism, and in fact, that term refers to older generations literally blacklisting people for their opinions. With political extremism and division being pretty dang high right now in the US, it doesn't appear we have any diversity of thought issues going on ideologically either. So I tried to find some way in which the modern generations have a unique sensitivity that we would say was more egregious than in prior generations, but I really only found one, and I don't think the folks who want to see this kind of evidence are going to enjoy what it implies. Jerks. Jerks have gotten softer, or bullies, or alpha wannabes, whatever you choose to call them. These types of folks have gotten extremely sensitive to having their behavior called out publicly. It's true that a modern Call of Duty lobby is going to have a less likelihood of being a slur fest, but that has more to do with moral awareness than moral sensitivity. In an article by Scott J. Reynolds and Jared A. Miller, the authors found that many folks confuse moral awareness with moral sensitivity. That is to say, when someone witnesses another person doing something awful, they are more likely to point this behavior out, which causes any other witnesses in the situation to experience a call to action against that person's behavior. If you're the person dropping the slur, you're much more likely to have a charitable interpretation of your own usage, and therefore more prone to associating the criticism you receive with the sensitive nature of other people. The truth, of course, is the exact opposite. Folks who want to use these awful words and push others around are the folks who went soft. Those of us calling it out and weeding out that poor behavior from our society aren't sensitive, at least not in any way that we should feel bad about. Keep standing up for your friends. Keep vigilant on these folks who want to bully others and help weed them out of our communities. They're scared, they're angry, they're not in control anymore. Woo! That was a lot of opining for no reason. If you liked it or hated it, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Check out my Twitch for live streams and sub here to see more of this content. And I finally got my Twitter up and running, or I think they're I don't know what they're calling it these days. It just looks like an X, but that's really hard to Google. The Twitter thing, whatever Twitter used to be, I have that now, so be sure to check me out on there. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good time.